phone up. When it comes to Crosswalk Church, gosh, there is so much this church has done for me and our community. And I was thinking about what we'll talk about. And just a little background, as Pete said, I grew up here in Napa. My father was in law enforcement here locally. My mother was a local banker. I'm the middle of three. I just feel so fortunate to grow up in this community. And my family goes back into the 1870s here in the Napa area. My great-great-grandparents were Irish immigrants that came here. So kind of humble folks that actually settled in Yountville. And so never prestigious. No, we didn't start a winery. He laid rock. He was a stonemason. He was a general contractor. And this is Matthias Vandeleur. Great aunt was the first female principal in Napa County. There's a Martha Vandeleur Park in the center of Yountville, honored in her name, which is a beautiful thing. But my family has always been a family of service and community, and that's in my DNA, and I'm very grateful to have that. I'm also with a family that has, like any family, that has some tough challenges that go on within the walls of our home. And our family, and just full transparency, as I always am, our family was plagued with generational alcoholism, functional alcoholism, but generational. And so my father was raised in a home with both parents functional alcoholics. I was raised in a home as the same. This is what happens. To be honest with you, I didn't even know it. I didn't know it until I became an adult and somebody told me. When you live in the home of an alcoholic, the home can be loving, but the love is skewed. And there's often other things that happen because of that. There's abuse, sometimes neglect. And but it's your normal. I then married, and fast forwarding, and this is going to land us here at Crosswalk Church. At my first beginning here, I married somebody who followed those traits. I then married somebody different later on, who I learned about 5 years into our marriage that he was an alcoholic. He was a closet alcoholic. Here I am repeating my childhood because it's so ingrained in how I was raised, in love, in family dynamics. I had no idea what I was doing, but I kept finding myself in this very sorrowful, frustrating, painful place with the people I love, that I choose to love in my life. Hence comes Crosswalk Church. During the time of my second marriage, I kind of had a moment where I just didn't know what to do next. And I talked to a therapist, and she says, "You need Al-Anon." And I'm like, "I've heard of Al-Anon, but what's Al-Anon?" And honestly, I felt embarrassed by the whole thing. And she talked about the impacts of alcoholism in family, especially on the children. And she goes, "You are a child of an alcoholic." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "There are impacts in your life because of that. And I think it would be really good for you to go to Al-Anon." So I kind of looked up Al-Anon meetings. To be honest with you, I was really resistant, really nervous, really embarrassed, really intimidated. And I found that there was a meeting here on Tuesday mornings. I came, I listened, I didn't speak. I couldn't. I would just break down in tears, to be honest with you. And plus, I just couldn't speak. But I listened, and though I walked away the first day not feeling comfortable, I felt some relief. I felt some relief. There were things there that I realized, it's like little light bulb moments, just a few. And I realized that the following week, until the next Tuesday morning came around, was actually a little better. So I attended every Tuesday morning here at CrossWalk Church. It was the first moment of finding a safe haven. And if I could give CrossWalk Church a name, it's a safe haven for this community on so many levels. So I attended that Tuesday morning for years, frankly. It took me over 3 months to say my first word in a meeting. And there were tons of tears, you know. And so in this safe haven, there have been so many tears for so many people as their hearts are broken, as their hearts are healing, as their spirits are broken, as their spirits are healing. And they find a place of acceptance and love, unconditional love and unconditional acceptance. I spent years here attending Al-Anon, and it really did, it was a sisterhood, a brotherhood, and it allowed me to launch myself into a new chapter into my life, because I could come here, and it was anonymous. Even though I'm not being anonymous, it's okay. I'm happy to share this story with you. So years later, during this time, I'm working at Queen of the Valley Medical Center, and I have 3 children, and went through with my second marriage a lot of hard times I won't go into, but I've kind of experienced it all. And years later, about 10 years after I was at Queen of the Valley, if anybody's been in the main door of Queen of the Valley between 1997 and 2008, you might have seen me. And then I was offered to move a position because I was ready to change in community outreach. And I took it. I thought, this is amazing, because I love service. You talk about service, that's definitely where, that's like, oh, I love service. And so I thought, wow, I can do something for the community in service. There's something that I learned from the Sisters of St. Joseph, and I was not raised in a Catholic setting, Catholic church setting. But there are certain things I learned from the sisters, and many of them are good friends of mine today, those who have not passed already. And that was something that's called Sacred Encounters. And at the Queen, we talked about sacred encounters. And a sacred encounter, I had years of sacred encounters there at that front desk. And what a sacred encounter is when you're in the presence of somebody else, oftentimes somebody you don't know, you open your heart, you allow that space of an open heart of love, and you listen, and you let the Spirit guide you. So during this time, now I'm in community outreach, and in 2007, I'm going to go to Operation with Love from Home. So I'm going to talk about 3 significant times. You heard my first. That's my experience and time in Al-Anon. Next, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Operation with Love from Home and the Sacred Encounter. And then the third was the 2017 fires. So what happened is, in 2007, a mother, a single mom who has her own incredible testimony, her son was away for Christmas for the first time, 18. He's in Iraq. He's a Marine. She is deathly scared of what may happen to him and that he's so far and in harm's way. And she was looking at, there was a prayer for peace wall inside the Queen between the cafeteria and the radiology. And she was standing there and she was looking at the picture. And Cammie Tim, who was then leading the spiritual care team, saw her. And they started a conversation. There was a sacred encounter that happened there. Lisa talked about how worried she was about her son, how she wanted to send him care package, how he told her that he's really the only one receiving any care packages out of a unit of 30-some young men. And she didn't know how she could send enough care packages for everybody. She worked in the cafeteria at the time. And Cammie said, again, I don't believe in accidents, I believe in sacred encounters, all things are divine. And Cammie said, let's share this with the staff, and I think we'll get enough items that you will be able to send Mitch more than one care package. So this just Spirit went wild inside the hospital with this story, with this need. Ooh, I've told the story lots of times, it just gets me right here in the heart. And that year, within 2 weeks of not knowing what they were doing, they were flooded with all these donations that filled an office. And they figured out, well, let's see, we better sort them, we better get them in these boxes, how can we ship them, all these things they learn. And they send Mitch and his unit 134 care packages of just all kinds of stuff. In 2008, when I started in community outreach, I missed the whole 2007 event. I had no idea. I was probably too immersed in my own stuff. But in 2008, they brought this to me. And again, I didn't know the impacts and those who are serving, how young they are, how often they don't have family support or community support. And they just feel really, sometimes just really lonely outside of their unit and kind of forgotten. And so when I learned this all arrived from Sacred Encounter, I got on board because in community outreach and was able to help develop this program in 2008 and bring it to the community. We were in the hospital for a couple years having these assemblies in the conference rooms, which is limited space. By the way, second year, the first year we did it, we sent out 434 care packages with the community. And Mitch was home, which is really great to have him home, but we knew others were still overseas and still in harm's way. But it just took a couple years and we outgrew the conference room at the hospital. And knowing this church and knowing there's a gymnasium, and gosh, Dar, my memory's so bad, I don't remember. I knew you and I think I was familiar with you being around here at that time. And I told the group, I said, how about CrossWalk Church? I had they didn't know my personal connection here, but I felt comfortable asking CrossWalk Church, could you be our safe haven for an assembly that will bring community members for these care packages to send to the men and women who are overseas, who are vulnerable? And of course, CrossWalk's like, sure, yeah, we'd be happy to. So open the doors once again, the gymnasium, and we had an amazing assembly. We did that for years here, for years and years. Every time I called Dar, of course, sure, we would look at the date and so on and so forth. If I forgot to call Dar, she's like, oh, Liz, do you want the gymnasium this year? If something else is coming up, she always made sure that, CrossWalk took care of this group. And that's where I learned the joy, and again, the healing and more love that this safe haven has for this community. As a mother, years later, became a mother of a Marine, and I understood as moms hold back the tears when their sons and daughters are deployed. I saw veterans cry who were in the Vietnam War because they never received the care package or correspondence or the support of community that we are now giving through Operation, through Love from Home, a conduit, being really led by Spirit. And so I see that revelation, that relationship to community and what it does from this church to the community and these folks. Fast forward, let me see what time it is, because I told you I could talk a long time. Where are we at? Oh gosh, I have to enter my password. My phone closed. Oh gosh, I'm way over. Okay, told you. Real quick, in 2017, when the fires happened, as we all know, it was a nightmare. And it was probably the closest thing to Armageddon we probably have ever seen here in Napa. We were Ebola fire. People were having displaced and going, and I'm like, I know CrossWalk Church is going to be there for people. I bet they're going to open, there'll be an evacuation center, and of course they were. I think I might just text Dar right away, like, are you guys opening up? And my sister was also I called my sister and asked her to evacuate, which, another story, she went back to bed. She could have died that night. She was at the base of Mount George. There's a whole nother miracle that happened to bring her out of that. But coming here and watching all the folks of the community and the most vulnerable, especially the elderly from the skilled nursing facilities, were here. The gymnasium filled up. People were scared. They didn't know if they're going to lose everything. They really had nothing. But they came here to the safe haven of CrossWalk Church. There was no medical here, no medical personnel. I work at Queen Valley Hospital for 20 years. I am not medical. I called the Queen to say, can you please bring people here to help us on the medical side? And they couldn't. They couldn't send anybody. It wasn't until the next day that there were some nurses that came. But that first night was a night I will never forget. I kind of like stepped in, kind of took charge in the ways that I kind of take charge. I was not in charge of everything, but I did what I could do, like many others, and found one nurse, and we just took care of all the folks we could take care of, and bring pillows in from the hospital and whatnot. But such a safe haven, such a place of sacred encounters, of love, of full acceptance, of tears, of joy, of healing and recovery. So that's kind of my moments. And then there's more, but those are the three that I wanted to share with you. Thank you for letting me talk so long.